Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about, well, have you ever thought about like all the AI tools that we use these days and how much energy it must take to like run all that stuff?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy to think about.
Like just think about it for a second.
hmm
All that processing power, all those servers running 24/7,
Yeah,
it's got to be a ton of energy.
it is a ton of
And
energy.
actually AI already uses like 4% of all US electricity, and that's just the beginning.
Yeah, that's only going to go up from here.
Exactly. So we're diving into this whole energy dilemma with some insights from a recent FinShots article,
Mm,
and we're going to try to understand why big tech is turning to a surprising solution.
surprising.
Yeah, you'll see in a sec. But first, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. And yeah, don't forget to share this episode with your friends, too. The more the merrier, right?
Absolutely. Always good to spread the word.
Okay, so the surprising solution we're talking about is nuclear power.
Nuclear power.
Yeah, you heard that right, nuclear power. And
Yeah.
we're going to unpack why that is and what it means for the future.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So to kick things off, let's talk about data centers. These massive facilities run by companies like, Microsoft, Google, Amazon.
Yeah, the big players.
Exactly. They're basically warehouses full of computers working nonstop to store and process all that data we generate.
Right, and to keep those computers from melting down, they need a constant flow of cool air.
Yeah, it's like having rooms full of ovens that need constant cooling. It's crazy.
Yeah, it uses a tremendous amount of energy.
So how are they going to balance this massive energy consumption with their climate goals? They all have these pledges to reach net zero emissions by 2030.
Yeah, it's a big challenge for sure.
It is a big challenge. So how are they going to do it?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Big tech is turning to nuclear power.
Nuclear power, that's a pretty big shift.
It is. Microsoft is actually reopening nuclear facilities to power its data centers.
Wow.
Yeah, and Google's collaborating with startups to develop those small modular reactors, the SMRs.
Oh, okay.
And Amazon is investing something like $500 million in nuclear-powered data centers.
Wow, that's a serious commitment. So what's behind this sudden interest in nuclear power?
Yeah.
What's driving this change?
Well, one key factor is reliability.
Reliability.
Yeah, nuclear power plants can operate continuously for years at a high capacity.
Really?
Yeah, unlike renewable sources like solar and wind, which depend on the weather, the sun shining or the wind blowing,
Right.
nuclear power is always on. It's
Mhm.
like that trusty old car that always starts no matter what.
That makes sense. It's reliable. It's always there when you need it.
Exactly.
But, nuclear power doesn't exactly have the best reputation, does it?
Yeah, there's no denying that.
I mean, when you think about nuclear power, what comes to mind?
Disasters.
Exactly. Disasters like Chernobyl.
Yeah, those events have definitely cast a shadow over nuclear power, for sure.
For sure. But are things changing?
Things are changing. The focus is shifting towards those SMRs, the smaller modular reactors, that are designed to be inherently safer and easier to set up.
Interesting. So are these SMRs like the future of nuclear power then?
Well, they have the potential to be.
Okay, so we've got big tech going nuclear and SMRs on the rise. What kind of impact is this having on the market?
Well, U.S. nuclear stocks are soaring.
Really?
Yeah, and uranium prices are at a 15-year high.
Wow, so this is more than just a passing trend, huh?
Yeah, it seems like nuclear power is making a comeback.
A comeback. All right, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, though. Is nuclear power really the answer? Are there any downsides or challenges we need to consider?
Yeah, of course there are always challenges.
Like what?
Well, building new reactors, even these smaller SMRs, is still expensive and time-consuming. There are regulatory hurdles to overcome, public perception issues, and the risk of going over budget.
Yeah, those are all valid concerns.
And some people argue that investing in nuclear power might take away resources from proven renewable energy sources like solar and wind.
Right, that's a good point. So it's not a simple issue. There's a lot to consider.
Exactly. There's a lot to consider.
So what do you think? Is nuclear power a necessary step towards a sustainable future, or is it a risky gamble?
Well, it's a complex issue with no easy answers. We need to weigh the potential benefits against the risks and challenges.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it for now.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into nuclear power. We've seen how big tech is embracing this technology, and we've explored the potential of SMRs. But as we've discussed, there are also challenges and risks to consider. So make sure you stick around for the next part of this deep dive, where we'll delve deeper into the economics of nuclear energy, the regulatory landscape, and the public perception challenges that need to be addressed. We'll also discuss the potential role of nuclear power in tackling climate change and meeting the growing global demand for energy. But before we go, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to The Other Opinion for more insightful discussions like this. And don't forget to share this episode with your friends. Let's keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. You know, it's amazing how the perception of nuclear power has changed so much.
Yeah, it really has. It used to be this like scary, dangerous thing.
Exactly.
A big no-no.
And now it's being seen as a potential solution to climate change.
Yeah, it's almost like a complete rebranding from villain to hero.
Right, and I think people are more open to it now, especially with the urgency of climate change.
Definitely. It's forcing us to rethink everything, including energy sources we might have dismissed before.
Yeah, we're having to make some tough choices.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about reducing emissions either. It's about ensuring a reliable energy supply. You know, with AI and all the data we're generating, the demand for energy is only going to increase.
Yeah, that's a key point. Nuclear power is a base load power source, meaning it can provide a steady and predictable flow of electricity, unlike solar and wind, which are intermittent.
So it's like the difference between a flickering candle and a powerful spotlight.
Exactly. You need that constant bright light to illuminate all that data. And as AI keeps evolving and becoming even more powerful, that demand for reliable energy is just going to keep growing.
Exactly. It's like AI is driving the resurgence of nuclear power.
It's an interesting connection for sure. And it's not just happening in the US either. Other countries are getting on board too.
Oh, yeah. It's a global trend. India, for example, is aiming to generate 25% of its electricity from nuclear power by 2050.
Wow, 25%. That's a big commitment.
It is. They're investing heavily in new reactors and SMR technology.
So it seems like nuclear power is becoming a major player on the global energy stage.
It is. What do you think about that?
Well, it's definitely a big development. And it raises a lot of questions, too.
Like what kind of questions?
For one, what about the potential risks of nuclear power? Are we really comfortable with expanding its use?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. And it's something we need to discuss openly and honestly.
And what about the costs? Is nuclear power really cost-effective compared to other energy sources?
That's another important question.
Hmm.
And it's one that we'll be exploring in more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
So make sure you stick around for that. But for now, I think it's safe to say that the future of energy is going to be very interesting.
It is. It's going to be a mix of different sources and technologies, including nuclear power.
A diverse energy portfolio.
Exactly. We need to be flexible and adaptable and embrace a variety of options.
Yeah, there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Absolutely not. What works in one place might not work in another.
Right. It's about finding the right mix for each specific situation.
Exactly. And that mix will probably continue to evolve as new technologies emerge.
Speaking of new technologies, what about nuclear fusion? That's something we should be paying attention to.
Oh, absolutely. Fusion power has the potential to be a game changer.
How so?
Well, if we can crack the code on fusion, it would be a clean, safe, and practically limitless source of energy.
Wow, that sounds almost too good to be true.
It does sound like science fiction, but it's something that scientists are working on very seriously.
So it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Definitely. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest developments in the world of energy, make sure you subscribe to The Other Opinion.
Yeah, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future deep dives.
And don't forget to share this episode with your friends, too. The more people we can get talking about these important issues, the better.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about the changing perception of nuclear power, the rise of SMRs, the global shift towards nuclear energy, and the potential of nuclear fusion. What else is there to cover?
Well, in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to take a closer look at the economics of nuclear energy, the regulatory landscape, and the challenges of public perception.
Sounds like we've got a lot more to discuss.
We do, but I think it's going to be really interesting.
Okay, so stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive into the comeback of nuclear power. Welcome back to The Other Opinion. So we've talked about big tech and nuclear energy, we've looked at SMRs, and it seems like nuclear power is making a comeback. But like with anything else, it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Right. Oh, definitely not. There are definitely some challenges we need to address.
Okay, so let's talk about those challenges. Like, what are some of the big ones?
Well, one of the biggest is the cost. I mean, building new nuclear plants, even these SMRs that are supposed to be cheaper.
Right.
It's still a massive investment.
It's a huge upfront cost.
Yeah, and even with these new designs, getting regulatory approval and ensuring safety, it all adds up.
So is nuclear power really cost-effective?
Yeah.
Then, especially compared to renewables like solar and wind, which are getting cheaper all the time.
That's a good question. And honestly, it's hard to say for sure. I mean, the cost of nuclear power can vary a lot depending on a bunch of factors.
Right, like location and regulations and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
And then you have to factor in the cost of dealing with nuclear waste, which is a whole other issue.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole public perception problem.
Oh, yeah. That's a huge challenge.
After those big accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima, A lot of people are understandably scared of nuclear power.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot of work to rebuild public trust.
So how do we do that? How do we convince people that nuclear power is safe?
Well, for one thing, we need to be completely transparent about the risks and the safety measures that are in place.
Transparency is key.
Yeah, and we also need to make sure that the industry is held to the highest safety standards.
Absolutely no cutting corners.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of diverting funds. Some people argue that all this investment in nuclear power is taking away resources from renewables like solar and wind.
Right, they say we should be focusing on those technologies instead.
Yeah, I mean, renewables are already making a big impact, and they're only getting cheaper.
So is it a mistake to invest in nuclear power then?
I don't think it's a mistake necessarily. I think we need a diverse energy portfolio.
A mix of different sources.
Exactly. We need all the tools in the toolbox if we're going to tackle climate change.
And meet the growing demand for energy.
Absolutely.
But it sounds like SMRs are still pretty unproven on a commercial scale.
Yeah, they are. There's definitely still a lot we don't know about them.
Like, how much will they really cost to operate in the long run?
Yeah, and how will we deal with the waste?
And are they really as safe as they're supposed to be?
Those are all important questions, and we need to find answers before we go all in on SMRs.
Okay, so where does this leave us then? Is nuclear power the answer to our clean energy dreams? Or is it a distraction from investing in proven renewable technologies?
Well, I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. Nuclear power has the potential to be a major part of the solution, but it also has its challenges.
So it's not a simple issue,
Nope, not at all.
but it's an important one, and one that we need to keep talking about.
Definitely. We need to have an open and honest conversation about the benefits and the risks of nuclear power so that we can make informed decisions about our energy future.
Absolutely. All right, well, that wraps up our deep dive into the comeback of nuclear power. Big thanks to our expert for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to The Other Opinion for more thought-provoking discussions. And don't forget to share this episode with your friends. Let's keep the conversation going. Oh, and one more thing. This was an AI-generated podcast episode. So while we aim for accuracy, it's always a good idea to do your own research and explore diverse perspectives.
Absolutely. Stay curious out there.
Until next time, keep those other opinions coming.